Hello, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's managed to join. Nice to have you all here. And I know it's 4 p.m., end of the day, and always it's a busy thing. So wonderful to have you. And there will be opportunity later. I'm just trying to get through some of the content. So if you do have questions, you'll have an opportunity to do it. You can either put it in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'll try and address those as we go through or near the end. And yes, but hopefully most of you have met or know from somewhere in life's long journey. And I realize a lot has changed over the last literally 6 to 7 months. It's just an unbelievable journey that we've all been on. And it's just something that none of us really could have imagined or envisaged. But here we are in this new crazy world. And how we respond to this and how we go forward is what's going to be really important. So that's what I'd like to have a look at. And I want to talk about what I've entitled Teaching in the Fourth Edtech Revolution. You've probably heard of the fourth industrial revolution. There's a lot of talk around that we're in this new era where everything is about technology. I also think we're actually in the fourth EdTech revolution. I think it's really important to understand what that means, because that makes all the difference. And so I want to take you on a little journey to what I call e-education island. If I've never shared this sort of metaphor before with you, I hope you'll find it useful. And hopefully with intention to try and show you how the tools that we have are so powerful and so amazing, but it's all about what we do with them and how we then network around using these tools, both with our students, teachers, and other people. So that's my intention today. So I'm going to kick off and we're going to have a look at a few basic things. Right, so I probably don't have to do much of a recap because you know this, but we were all happy. Life was good. We were on Education Island, and we've been on what I call Education Island for a long time. If you're like me, I've been involved in teaching at the university for over 25 years, and we're happy. We had our techniques that we used, and it was all good. And there have been rumblings, and there's sort of been this other, what I call e-education island, over there somewhere. But, we didn't necessarily have to go into the whole e-world. We could carry on, or we could just use little bits of it on our happy place here in Education Island. And there've been rumblings. So we've had rumblings like our students maybe not being so connected, or some teachers wanting to push the boundaries and do a little bit more. Or if you're in a higher education environment like myself, or any of you are in higher education, we have major rumblings in terms of our students and protest due to the accessibility of education, etc. But be that as it may, we continued, and life was, pretty good. We could handle the rumblings, and we did. To a large extent, we sort of just handled the rumblings, and everything was fine, and life continued on, and we were happy. And so despite the fact that over on the other side was e-education island and it was all glimmery and shiny, we were happy with what we were doing to a large extent. And as I said, we implemented maybe some of the little tools and techniques on our island, but nothing too dramatic until, well, what I call Mount Virusius erupted. And Mount Virusius is the COVID epidemic, the COVID pandemic that hit us. And it just sort of came out of nowhere. We just didn't even see it coming, and it hit us. And overnight, our comfortable little education island, well, it had changed. And it just wasn't possible for us to teach. And it didn't matter who you were, if you were in preschool, if you were in primary, high school, higher education, continuing adult education, it made no difference. When Mount Virusius erupted, we all had to run. We had no option. We had to get ourselves out of there, because all of a sudden, we could no longer teach in the way that we had taught before. And so we ended up in this crazy new place. We leapt into our proverbial rowing boats and just paddled furiously out of there as best as we could, because it was just a disaster. And we all found ourselves at home, literally, having to now teach. And all of a sudden, the headmasters and the HODs are at home, and the teachers are at home, and the students are at home. And we're trying to connect with each other. We're trying to teach, and we just don't know how to do it. And so it was a brave crossing, but it was something we all had to do. And it was rather traumatic having to ford the difficult waters that we all had to get across in such a such a rush. And so we all arrived at e-Education Island, whether we liked it or not. Here we were. We had to teach, whether it was with Zoom or Teams. We had to figure out Google Classroom. We had to figure out if you were using Moodle in your institution or whatever it may be. We had heard about these tools. We may have even had some of these tools. But all of a sudden, these weren't just little support tools. This was everything. This was school. And as you all know, you've all been through it, it's been an absolute panic. As an aside, I run another webinar which happens, well, there's another one coming up this Thursday. So if anyone wants the details of that, you can let me know. It's called Behind the Screens. And some of you have been on it. In fact, some of you have been panelists on Behind the Screens. And in the Behind the Screens webinar series, I get experts, that's teachers, principals, HODs, lecturers who are behind the screens where the teaching is now happening to share some of what's actually transpired and is transpiring. And so this coming Thursday, we're going to be looking at behind the screens. What does the post-COVID student look like? Because our students have changed. But the point is, we've all had to arrive here on e-Education Island, and life is different, and it wasn't easy. And when you looked at some of the stories being shared in the media, when you heard anecdotes from people, there were some really funny videos going around from some of the schools. I think St. John's shared a really funny video. But it really wasn't easy. And one thing seemed to come out over and over again when you just look at the media, that it wasn't working. And this wasn't something new. It was just suddenly under the spotlight. And so all of a sudden under COVID, people were saying it's failing. Online classes lack engagement. You know, it's just a failure. But those headlines weren't new. They were the similar type of headlines we'd been seeing just like that prior to the whole COVID crisis. For example, why education technology failed. That's come from 2009. Many of you may be familiar with the Los Angeles iPad program. Back in 2014, they tried to roll out technology to schools in Los Angeles and they considered it a failure. So all of a sudden, now we're sitting on this e-Education Island and it's like, it's a disaster. It's an absolute failure. It's just not working. And so that's a problem. But what makes it even more scary is that I think for most of us, we would agree that this is not going to be a temporary thing. And so we've come through in South Africa, the various waves, and we've gone from level 700 down to level 1, and we've got some of our kids back, or not all of them, or whatever it may be. We've got restrictions. But this is not the end. And I'm not just talking in terms of the virus. We may end up with a second surge. We hope, we pray we don't have that, like is happening in Europe and North America. But that aside, there is the stark reality that we may have another version of this virus in the future time. But even that aside, education has fundamentally changed. You all probably know about the 10,000-hour rule. If you spend enough time doing something, you start to change your habits. And our students and our teachers and society has changed habits. Just the fact that we're doing these webinars are a daily event. A meeting like this is almost become a natural way to connect. And so education and e-Education Island is here to stay whether we like it or not. It's just how are we going to now adapt it? How are we going to teach in this new space? And that's what's going to become really important. So we can't accept that this is not effective. We can't accept that it's just, not as good as the traditional. And it doesn't mean the traditional is going out, but there is a new model that has arisen. And so it's really important that if we are going to be living on this new island, because I don't believe there's any going back, we've made a dash across the dangerous seas to this new place. How can we do it in a way that we know it's going to be as effective as possible? Now, that's a big question, and there are multiple answers and multiple layers to it. I want to just look at one very, very simple aspect that has been proven to be essential if we are going to be effective in the e-Education Island. But in order to do that, I need to do a little rewind. I should key in the rewind music now. And I want to talk about the 4 education technology revolutions. So I'm going to take you on a history tour for about 2 minutes, all the way from early human to where we are now, because I think sometimes we get stuck in where we're at, and especially when it's a panic situation like this, and we don't have perspective. And I think perspective helps us understand where we are. And that's where models are useful. That's why the model of the fourth industrial revolution is handy, because we can understand how that differs from the third industrial and the second, etc. And I'm hoping that'll help us understand why it may be that what we are doing in our new style of schooling, whether it be online or whether it be blended or a combination, may not be as effective as we'd hope. And it comes down to what I refer to as the four EdTech revolutions. So very quickly, if we had to broadly take history, I believe there's been essentially four types of innovations, four types of technologies actually, that have dramatically changed how we teach and how our students learn. So I'm going to have a quick look at these very, very briefly. So the very first EdTech revolution was essentially some form of writing device, because prior to this, how did we communicate? Well, the way we communicate, or the way we taught and learned prior to this, was all oral. So all teaching was oral. You'd be gathered around the campfire type thing, or the wise dude would be sitting there with the students around, and you would have a conversation. But somewhere along the line, we started to figure out, you know what, if you can record things, that's actually useful, because I can record and share it with you. And so there was recordings on tablets. I'm not talking about our modern day tablets, but clay tablets. And then it was papyrus, and then the pens got better, and we went from fountain top pens, the ones you dipped in, to pencils and ballpoint pens, etc., etc. But we ended in this new, what's called the textual era. And this should have been a change. It would have been a change from purely being oral, because the fact is now you could actually, in a sense, interact with yourself in your learning. Well, that was what predominantly learning was like for thousands of years, until maybe the next major innovation, which was the printing press, Gutenberg's printing press. And this changed learning again. And in each of these innovations suddenly brings learning to a whole new space. And so the printing press suddenly shifted us to a totally different style of learning, because the printing press was about producing books and content. And so we ended up in the cycle where content could be recorded in a book, handed to lots of people who would then suck it up and reproduce it. And in a way, that is what has dominated literally up until today for many schools. Learning became quite inactive, and we sit in what's called the passive consumer environment, in the instructivist style, where teachers want you to get through chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, and reproduce that content. And so that was largely defined by this innovation of the printing press. Well, coming up to now more modern history, where most of us were alive, we have the invention of the computer. And this ushered in what I call the digital era. This was exciting because all of a sudden we had technology, we had computers, we could do PowerPoint. I mean, that's amazing. We could have a PowerPoint show, and I'm sure some of you're probably all too young to remember this. But in the old days, when I was a young lecturer, I remember using overhead projectors. Remember OHPs? And you would have these OHPs, and originally I'd have to write on them. Yeah, make sure you get the right pen, otherwise it rubs off. And then when it got fancy, you could even print on them and make sure you printed on the right one. And it was overhead projector slides. And then we got PowerPoint, and we got data projectors. It was cool. And in fact, that's what a lot of schools are still using. My university uses it. There's nothing wrong with it. But there is a problem, because the use of this technology doesn't actually fundamentally shift learning. Learning still becomes very reactive. Learning's very passive. The fact that someone is watching a YouTube video, the fact that someone is listening to my PowerPoint presentation hasn't fundamentally shifted the teaching or learning in any dramatic way. It's merely in a way entrenched what we were doing before, which was just in a textbook on a piece of printed paper or on a blackboard. And so a lot of schools were under this sort of, and higher education institutions were under this sort of illusion that we're in a new era. We are in a new era, but our pedagogies, our teaching approaches were actually much the same. They were just an e-version or a digital version of the previous era. But hot on the heels of the third EdTech revolution was the fourth EdTech revolution, and that was the invention of the internet. And this would be a game changer. The internet would usher in social media. The internet would usher in what I refer to as the connected era. All of a sudden, it wasn't that digital was merely to record something digitally or use it in a classroom in a sort of passive way. All of a sudden, there was this platform, this network that allowed people to communicate. And that's amazing. What we're doing right now is part of the internet, of the connected era. And this was incredible because we had these tools that suddenly allowed people to connect. Social media, the core of that is about connecting. And so you would post something on YouTube, and there would be comments about it. People would be on Facebook, and they would be, sharing things, or on Instagram. And this new world exploded. But for a lot of us educators sitting happily on our education island, we didn't realize that there's actually a difference. You see, if you look at the island, there are actually two sides to it. There is the left-hand side, which I refer to as the digital zone, and the education's right-hand side is the connected zone. And so when we arrived and we got you on our little ships and we did the mad dash and we got you, if you can see my little arrow, we landed somewhere over here after getting past the wrecks of digital teaching and the sea of change, and we came all the way in here and we landed in Curiosity Cove, whether we were curious or not, I don't know. And we landed here, and there were some teachers already here and others of us now arrived, and we landed on this left-hand side of the island, this side here, which is called the digital zone. The problem with the digital zone is it is very passive. It is about teaching that is in its essence the same as we were doing on Education Island. And that's why it was not totally uncomfortable, because to use PowerPoint instead of overhead projectors, to even use Zoom right now as we are, is not that dissimilar to maybe how we're doing in the classroom. In the classroom, you stood up and you spoke to the students. Okay, I've got to figure out, can I just get them on Zoom? I do the same thing through Zoom. Or, as some teachers are doing, I'll make a video. So there's my normal lesson. I know it's a little awkward, but I'll then set it up and take a video of myself, and I will send that to the students. And so now all of a sudden we're in e-education island. Yes, we are, but we're on the wrong side of the island. And that is why we have seen so much negativity about what's happened. It's boring enough for a student to sit in a lesson, or any of us, to sit in a lesson for 45 minutes and sometimes longer, or to take that and shrink us down, as you are doing right now, to the size of your laptop screen or to the size of your phone, and expect that to be interesting and engaging. And the same is with PowerPoint. And so all these technologies, if we use them in the wrong way, if we're merely using them as a copy-paste of the old approach, we still sit in what I refer to as in the consumption zone. What we're missing is the ability to switch across to the other side of the island, to the connected zone. And that's what I want to share with you and actually get you to experience a little bit now, because what I've done for you so far is exactly what I say we shouldn't be doing. We have been teaching and engaging on the digital zone, because I've been doing things and you've just been sitting there stroking the dog, I don't know, whatever it is. I have no idea how connected you are. Now, I have purposefully not done this and set this up as a normal Zoom meeting where I can see all of you and you can all talk, because often this is how it's done. I might not be able to see your faces, but I still need to know, is there a connection? Are you engaged? How do I engage you? And we need to switch across to the other side. So now comes our exciting opportunity to do that. Right. So what is going to be required now is relatively simple. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to ask you to grab, well, if you're sitting on your laptop, you can open your browser and you can jump to a new tab on your browser, or alternatively, you can grab your cell phone and you can go there. So very simple. All I need you to do is go to www.menti.com and type in that code. So that shouldn't be too difficult. So as I said, you can either just open a tab on your browser. You'll be able to see everything that's happening on here. You'll still be able to hear me through Zoom. Or if you like, you can grab your mobile phone and do the same thing there. So open a browser, go to www.menti.com and type in the code 4850699. And the reason I want you to do that is I want you to, for a moment, experience the connected zone. And I'm using just one tool here, and I might just look at one or two others just to give you a little bit of a taste. of how things change when we move across from the digital zone to the connected zone, and what it is that enables us to do that. And it's actually not that difficult. So grab your device, and if yes, I see some of you putting hearts there. When you get there, hit the heart button. I'll know you're there. So I know that you've managed to make it across to the connected zone. The little code will stay on the screen even when I move to the next screen. So if you're not fast enough, you'll still be able to join at any time. So what I'm going to try and do now is let you experience what it is like and the difference. And I hope you're going to see the difference when we now just start to use tools. They're the same tools in a sense, when we use tools, but with the intentionality of being active, of activating our student. And in this case, I'm putting you as the student so you can experience what it's like. And I'm sure many of you have been in webinars, many of you have been in online presentations, and they can be absolutely boring. They can be as boring as the PowerPoint that can kill us when someone goes on too long. So I can see that I've got a few of you in there, and even if you haven't yet made it, that's okay. You can still join as we have a quick look at the connected zone. Right, so what is it that enables us to move across from the digital zone, where we've landed on the education island, to the connected zone? And I'll put it to you, it's one simple thing. It's not new technologies. I call it the bridge of pedagogies. You see, we're all very excited, and there are amazing technologies, and I think Zoom just exploded onto the scene in this COVID crisis. But Google Classroom has always been there. PowerPoint's always been there. All of these great tools, YouTube has always been there, and on it goes. It is not the technology that we need to be focused on. It is how we teach with the technology that is absolutely key. And it's that enables us to use the same technologies and new ones that we can find if we apply the appropriate pedagogies to them. And so for most of you, you're aware, and I've spoken to you, and I've been at your school, or I've worked with you about the ACT model. And it is a series of pedagogies that are specifically designed to encourage active teaching and learning. And prior to COVID, it was having a huge impact in classrooms around the world. But the impact is even bigger when it happens online and going forward in the blended era. And it's vital that we get this right. And it's not difficult. It is just about a mindset recoding that we need, because we've spent so long teaching in a certain way on Education Island, and we don't want to continue to do exactly that same thing. So the ACT model, very quickly, just as a recap for those who, sorry, someone said they can't see the code on the screen. The code is at the top of the screen. It's 485069.9, 485069.9. I'm just going to quickly, in case people can't see it, let me quickly go over here and put it in the chat. Right, so if you can't see the code, just go to www.menti.com, and the code is 485069.9. Okay, so I've just posted that in the chat for those who haven't managed to get it. 485069.9. Right. So just quickly, the ACT model isn't complex, and this is not rocket science in a sense, but it is a fundamental approach that changes some significant elements of how we approach teaching. You see, when we've naturally done something in a certain way, it's hard sometimes, unless we reframe it, to make the change. And so I often talk to teachers and educators about making pedagogy visible and explicitly thinking about it. And that's what the ACT model is about. It's about these pedagogies that when we explicitly design our teaching around them, the content remains important, but we are thinking about how to activate the content. And the more we use them, they actually become second nature. And so these pedagogies, from curation to conversation to correction, creation, and chaos, are all about engagement, are all about activity. And they build a whole lot of 21st century skills as well, but I'm not going to talk about those specifically. But they are primarily about engaging our students in the learning. And they have a huge impact online, and they have a huge impact in our classroom environments in the blended learning space. So welcome to the connected zone. And so in the connected zone, it's, as I said, it's the same technologies. The technologies haven't changed. It's we want to use these technologies, but overlay them with pedagogies that can change how we teach and learn. So very quickly, what I'd like to do is I'm going to give you a very, very minute or two summary on each of these pedagogies and give you a little experience of what it might be like to use. As I said, I'm just doing this quickly and I'm taking all of this and constricting it into the hour that I want to complete this in, just to give you an experience of how it's different learning in the connected zone. And hopefully already you're seeing just the fact that you can press the little heart button, something's different. I can actually get a sense. I'm feeling the love. You know, sometimes, especially online, you feel totally disconnected. At least I am feeling you coming back to me. Right. So the first of the ACT pedagogies is the pedagogy of curation. And curation is something that we all do all the time. Every morning when you get up, you curate your clothing. But it's something that students, and most of us in the modern age, are doing all the time. Every time you go onto social media, you're curating. You're deciding what's going to go on your feed. When you like things, share things, post things, what you're doing, you're curating. And curating is a very, very active pedagogy because it requires you to make decisions. It requires you to think. It requires you to order things in importance, to arrange things in categories. So classically, what would we do in a classroom? We'd say to our students, I want you to read chapter 3, and chapter 3 is on the history of the Incas or whatever it may be. Now, we've already taken from our students a massive learning opportunity. I could say to them, I would like you to go out and find 3 resources about the history of the Incas, but I want one of them or 2 of them to be controversial or whatever it is. What are they having to do? They're having to read a whole lot. They're having to become effective readers. They're having to categorize their reading. They're having to think critically about what they've read. And so all of a sudden, content, which was just about the content, is now brought about these other layer of very important 21st century skills. So curation helps our students develop key skills like critical thinking, like collaboration, if you get them to work together, like communication, etc. And there's a whole range of 21st century skills that are really important that we develop. But I'm going to give you a chance to curate. And this is a very, very quick curation activity. You'll see on your screen there are listed 5 21st century skills. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to rank them in order from the one that you think this is the most important that we develop in our students down to number 5. Obviously, they're all important and there are others. So you'll see on your screen, you'll be a little drop down. You can choose which one you think is first. And then there'll be another little box and you'll see the remaining 4. So you can choose which one you think is second and so on. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. And then I will pop up on the screen what the general thinking is. So you need to rank those in order from the critical or from the 21st century skill you think is most important at the top down to position number 5. Give you a moment to do that. Right now, I can see some of you have submitted your results and I will put it on the screen in a moment. But before I do that, the reason I haven't put it on the screen, the reason I am asking you to do this is because it's forcing you to think. What are you being forced to do? You're being forced to make multiple decisions. The first decision is quite hard because it's like, okay, out of all of those, which one am I going to put first? And you make a choice. And now you've got 4. Now you've got to choose out which one's actually second, which one's actually third, which one's actually fourth, and therefore 5th. And so you're making multiple decisions. So let's have a look at where people are and what they're saying. So at the moment, first place has critical thinking. So the group is saying critical thinking is probably the most important. Creativity is coming at number 2. Tie with problem solving. So if you haven't submitted yours yet, you can change the order. Persistence and risk taking. And in fact, this will keep changing. If more and more people start putting in or change, this will adjust. But not only have you been forced to think yourself about the order, now you look at this order and you say, no, I didn't have it like that. I had creativity as number 1. The group thinks it's critical thinking is number 1. Fantastic. You see, because you're being forced to think about this, about these 21st century skills. If I just given you the list and said, they're the top 5, you would have gone, yep. Looks good. That's the order that were important. You would have probably gone, yep, probably. But because you had to engage with it, because you had to make the decisions yourself, essentially what you were doing, you were curating a list. And now in reflecting on it, you can compare what you came up with others, and immediately your brain has been activated. So hopefully you've just seen in that very, very quick example, because it's just one aspect of curating, which is the whole concept there, where someone's voted in creativity, and creativity has just popped above problem solving. But hopefully you can see that all of a sudden your brain is being engaged, and those who were saying problem solving should be second have just been seen it demoted, and now you can even get a little bit of competition going in here, and people say, well, I'm going to change it to be the most important, move it to first so that maybe it'll pop up to second or whatever. But that's what I want. I want the students to be engaged. I want them to engage around the content. I want them to be thinking constantly. And so content doesn't have to be something that is static. It's only static if the activities around it, if the pedagogies around it are not exciting and activating. So that's curation. The second of the ACT pedagogies, and you'll notice that they go up in layers. And just as an aside, my daughter is actually doing her master's in computer science research on this, because all of the research is focusing on the importance of engagement in learning. And she's actually looking at how these pedagogies impact engagement, because we've found it very difficult, especially in online spaces, to figure out how do we make content engaging. You know, sometimes we do things and we're not sure why it is, why it works. And so by looking at these pedagogies, we actually have a lens to purposefully build in engagement so that we can ensure that we can have effective learning. And so as we go up the layers, each layer essentially brings about more engagement, and the net effect of that is more cognitive investment, and the net impact of that is better learning and student performance. So the next level up is conversation, and conversation is something it's just natural to us. We're all involved in conversation, and I'm talking in a digital zone. Every time we go into WhatsApp, and that became a stalwart in this lockdown, or when you're in a social media space, even static content that wouldn't have seemed to be part of conversation, like a YouTube video, has comments, and people have conversations around that content, and that's what brings it to life, sometimes negatively, but that's what adds activity to this. And so conversation is absolutely central to what we do in the modern digital age. Right, so let's have a quick little online conversation. And again, there are so many cool tools we could use. I'm just keeping you in Mentimeter at the moment because I don't want to wander out too many different places. But let's just take Mentimeter as an example. Actually, you know what? I've just made an on-the-fly decision. I'm actually not going to do that. Even though you're about to do something right there, I'm going to show you. Let us chat. Right. I'm actually just going to open a really cool tool called tlk.io. You saw how I created it. All I need you to do is go to that URL, tlk.io/let-us-chat. And when you get there, you'll see a screen exactly like this. And we've started a chat. I've started on the fly chat. I want you to pop in here. And so there's the URL. You can just open up another tab. If you're sitting with Mentimeter, just open another tab and join me here. And I'm going to ask a question. And here's the question. Okay. So my question is, what one piece of advice would you give a new teacher going forward? So if you've managed to join me here, I'm feeling a little lonely at the moment because I'm only seeing me here. So the address you've got to go to is tlk.io/let-us-chat. Right. So you need to type it in exactly like that, by the way. Sorry. Otherwise, if you don't, you'll just create another chat room. And that's what's really cool about this tool. It creates little chat rooms that are just, in a sense, disposable. No setup required, no drama required, nothing required. It's just quick and easy. The reason it knows who I am is because I've registered with the site previously. But literally, I could type in anything here. After the /, I could type in anything I want, and that would be the chat room URL, and people could join. So I can see Tatum and Leo and Tracy have joined. So now that you're here, let's have a quick chat inside tlk.io. So there's my question. If you had to give one piece of advice to a new teacher, they're arriving at your school, and I mean, they've landed in e-education Ireland. Maybe they're being employed from next year, or they're getting employed now. And what would you say to them is a good piece of advice? I know this is tricky. This is not that easy. But that's what this is about, trying to get you to think. What would be your one piece of advice for for a new teacher going forward. So I'll give you a moment to type that in. Now, while you're doing that, the reason I'm using this, and we could be having this as a conversation on video. So we could put you all on camera and I could turn your cameras on and we could all start chatting. Often the problem is by doing that, especially with students, is there is a lot of reticence to be on camera, a lot of reticence to talk. Even for us as teachers, it's not easy. And so text-based chat is a lot less threatening. And another big benefit of text-based chat is that it enables us to have an artifact of the learning. So we can go back afterwards and revisit this, and we'll see the next pedagogy is the pedagogy of correction, and we can unpack what's just happened here. So here we're seeing some options to be adaptable, remain calm and persevere. Versatile, think on your feet. Tracy says, be open to learning. Halinka says, be flexible and reflect. Okay, so I'm just for some fun here. Now I can click on anyone. I'm clicking on Ingrid. When I do that, it pops up a name. And I could then type, Ingrid, what do you mean? Now, again, we're sort of doing this in a double layer here. I'm having an audio conversation as well as a text-based conversation, but you could do this without the audio totally. And in fact, that's often how I run this, is I do this without any audio. It's purely online. We have the online debates here, and it can get, for any of you who've been on any of my online courses, and I've run one of these with you, it can get quite intense. And the cognitive investment of the people involved is absolutely amazing. Right, so for a moment, I'm actually going to turn myself off. So we're just going to talk text just for a minute. Okay. Hopefully you get the ideas. I'm sorry, I'm picking on what you guys are saying, but that's exactly what I want to do. Often it's just an opportunity to take a contrarian view, and the detectives coming in and explaining deeper, and Ingrid explaining why that's been said, and on and goes. You know, essentially all of a sudden, and it doesn't take a lot of poking and prodding to really get engagement going and to get students to engage among themselves. Look how quick it was. I mean, essentially we've just jumped across to a new space, and all of a sudden, boring old Zoom making us all sleep has got another layer to it. And this could be done with Zoom, with any, it's irrelevant. It's that I had an intentionality around making use of the pedagogy of conversation. And so that's just one example of it. So at the risk of you all continuing in there, I'm going to just jump back. And in fact, I'm not going to worry about doing it here, but we could have had a conversation right here also in Mentimeter. It has the tools for us to have conversations here too. And you can ask questions and you can have a conversation. And maybe not quite as powerful as the Talk IO, but you can still build a conversation around it. That brings us to the third of the ACT pedagogies. And this is the pedagogy of correction. And to me, this is central to modern education. I'm at the moment based down in Franschhoek, and I was just this week, I've just come back from Sea Point. And for those of you familiar with the Sea Point area around to Camps Bay, there was a little road there, was a couple of little roads there called Beta Avenue, Beta Road. And to me, that's what this is about. It's about what I call the beta mindset, the ability that we are constantly correcting, that we haven't got it figured out. And all of us as teachers and principals and HODs have had to realize that we haven't got it all figured out. And to take that approach, that mindset approach, and build it into our teaching is absolutely essential, because the ability to correct and adjust is what is core to technology. All of a sudden, we don't have to have everything perfect. We can adjust, and we are not going to get it perfect. And we can no longer, and it used to be, I know a lot of people would say, well, we're not going to try and get into technology until we've got it all figured out. And we've got the fiber line, and we've got that, and we've got all the right tools, and we've got all the right training. That's not going to happen. It already hasn't happened, but it's okay, because if we don't get it right, we learn from our mistakes. And it's such a powerful approach for ourselves as it is for our students. And to explicitly build in correction as a pedagogy into everything, whatever the content is, adds this incredible layer of activity. And it's actually so simple. I'm going to share a link with you right at the end where I'm going to take a video that is a boring old traditional video. Essentially, it's this presentation squashed down to just 20 minutes, and it has a layer of correction added to it, and it just changed the whole dynamic. Right, so time for a quick quiz. I hope you've been focused. This is to see who has been listening. Right, so there's only 3 people who got to the quiz. So if you didn't get to the quiz in time, you need to come in quickly. The fourth Edtech Revolution ushered in the what? So you need to choose on your device, which of these did the fourth Edtech Revolution usher in? The digital era, the connected era, the print era, the oral era, but there's only 2 seconds left, 1 second left, and time is up. Some of you are still getting in there in time, but oh, well done. Now, 6 people of those who answered said the right thing, the connected era. Now, what's just happened? Besides a little bit of pressure that I put on you, suddenly your brain was like, we're having a conversation a moment ago, and you're probably still chatting over in TLK.io. Your brain has had to suddenly switch to something else. But I've been able to get feedback from you, and this is one of the central elements of active teaching and learning. It's about the feedback loop. You see, when we're involved in a passive approach, there is no feedback loop. And typically, where does the feedback come in? The feedback comes in the summative assessment that sits at the end. Why is that? Is assessment purely to determine a grade for our students, or is assessment part of the learning process? And I put it to you, it has to be part of the learning process. And so I want to know right up front, oh, you didn't get that. And maybe it counts and maybe it doesn't. But what's more important is by the engagement, I can see that you all understood there is a difference between the digital zone and the connected zone. So, but who was the quickest? Because there must be a winner. And, oh, it's very close. St. Elmo right at the top there with Barefoot Contessa coming in second and Coleman third. And so that is our leaderboard, but don't worry, there is more where that came from. Question number 2. Right, remember, the faster you answer, the more points you're going to get. Get your fingers ready. Fingers ready? Are your fingers ready? It's going to be an easy question, I'm sure of it. I can't remember what it was, but I just got a feeling that it's an easy question. Oh, there we go. It's an easy one. Whose logo is this? Everyone knows this because we've seen this all the time. Which of those is it? Remember, the faster you are, get your answer and the more points you're going to get. Oh, everyone's voted. Excellent. Oh, that is super depressing. 5 people calling it WhatsApp. Okay. I have to break something to you. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you were rushing. So you've learned a valuable lesson today. The valuable lesson is read carefully, like we tell our students all the time. Read carefully. If you thought it was called WhatsApp, let me help you in future embarrassing situations, how you can avoid them. When you're trying to look cool with your students and you're chatting to them, you're saying, I think we should make more use of WhatsApp and Twitter, their little eyeballs are rolling going, oh man, because it's called WhatsApp and Twitter. So just a small little aside, try and get those words right, but obviously most of you knew that anyway, and you were just rushing. And so what's now happened on the leaderboard as punishment for not reading carefully? Has there been a change? Oh, St. Elmo getting it wrong, but not Barefoot Contessa and Shadow jumping in. So there's going to be a change, and bang, to the top. The leaderboard has changed with Barefoot Contessa and Shadow. At the top, you see St. Elmo. Focus, it's important. But it's important because you're learning through your mistakes. You won't make that mistake again. Right, question number 3. Are you ready? Here we go. Get those fingers limber because the faster you, the quicker. The pedagogy of correction is about being prepared to make. Think before you answer. Think. The pedagogy of correction is about being prepared to make. Think, please think, but you've all answering. 4 seconds left. 3, everyone's in. Oh man, I try so hard to get you to think, and you all didn't think, and you all got it wrong. Oh, I'm going to drown my sorrows with a sip of water. The pedagogy of correction is about being prepared to make mistakes, yes, but you don't demonstrate that. You didn't demonstrate it. You said it's about it. You spoke the words, so to speak, but you would refuse to make the mistake. Not one of you chose the misspelled word, which is the mistake, which is what the pedagogy is about. Oh, it's so easy to walk the talk, talk the talk, walk whatever. Okay. That was just to mess with you. Yes, but it is about being prepared to make mistakes. It's okay to get things wrong. And in fact, I build in questions like this. I build in to my teaching and learning and to the approaches I try and show intentional mistakes, because it arrests our thinking. And that's really important. And so mistakes are key, and we should build them in. And so for those of you who, at the end, I said I'll share a little video, you'll see the video has questions, and sometimes the questions precede the content. And that's really important, because by doing that, it forces the students to think about the content even before they've seen it, and often make a mistake, because that's where the learning is. So how has that changed our leaderboard? Here we go. At the top of the leaderboard, we have still Barefoot, Contessa, and Shadow and San Elmo, because everyone got it wrong. But don't worry, there are going to be 2 more questions coming up later. Right, so that's Pedagogy of Correction, a very powerful and activating approach. And there are many, many, many ways we can do it, from traditional MCQs to putting it like this, to Kahoots, to embedding it in videos, to using it inside of documents. And there's a whole range of ways. It's not the tools that are important or the technologies, it's the pedagogy. We come up to the next layer. And I want to talk about the pedagogy of creation. Now, typically in a little session like this, I would often just keep it in Mentimeter. But again, creating is just such a powerful tool. There's such a major difference between watching a video and making that video. And I'll probably share this with many of you. For many years, I would have a class at the university where I would teach a particularly boring subject. And I just couldn't figure out how to activate the learning. And I would do the lecture, I would do the speaking, and they would do the sleeping, until I got them, and this is just one example, to actually create a very short video. And now it's blown to more than that. They can make a game, they can make an infographic, they can do a whole lot of things to illustrate the content. And it's incredible how engaged they've become, and the learning that happens in the creating process. You've all heard of Bloom's taxonomy. The highest order thinking skills at the top are around creating. And so let me give you a very quick example. We're going to grab another. This is an amazing tool. It's a tool that's covered in one of my courses that I do. It's called Whiteboard.fi. So in fact, before I go there, just to make your life even easier, I'll just flick it up over here. So what you need to do is open a tab on your browser. And if you've got your phone, you can actually even scan that little QR code, if you like. In fact, it's quite nice to do this on your phone because you're going to get to a little whiteboard's appearing, and you can get to draw with your finger, but you can equally draw on your little trackpad on your computer or whatever. So either scan that QR code with your phone and it'll open a browser tab, or type in that URL you see at the bottom there, whiteboard.fi. That's .fi at the end there. I think it's I've actually been in contact with this guy. He's a Finnish chap, very intelligent and very clever what he's doing here. And then /N44RY. Now, you've probably all used whiteboards before, and I'm talking about electronic whiteboards. You may have even used them in places like Zoom, etc. This one I really like, because not only is it free, it does things in a slightly different way. So traditionally, the way a whiteboard works is everyone leaps onto one place, and we all tend to draw in the same place. So I'm going to switch across. If you've scanned the scanner, that's fine. The link will be still on the screen over here. So the link is still here at the top. Hopefully you can see it. In fact, I can put it for you on my screen to make it really clear for you. In case you can't see the link, I will quickly paste it over here. And I'm going to draw something on my whiteboard. There we go. So there is the link on the screen as well. Right. So if you go there, you are going to appear and you're going to get your own little whiteboard. So I can see down the bottom there a whole lot of you. I'm going to show you in a moment that I don't want to show you yet. You've got your own whiteboard. What I want you to do is I want you to draw tomorrow. That's my only instruction. Draw tomorrow. You've got a couple of little simple tools. You've got just a little drawing thing like that. You've got fancier tools. If you really want to get fancy, you can change colors. But you can literally draw it just with those sort of tools if you like. You can obviously, if you wanted to do a circle and get a little bit more fun, you could do that as well. As I said, you can do all sorts of things. I'm going to give you a moment. I want you to know, you don't have to be an artist. That's not what this exercise is particularly about. As you can see, I certainly am not an artist. And in fact, with this tool, you can even upload images that you have got somewhere, so you can do that. But very simply, you can grab these tools and you can draw tomorrow. Now, what's interesting while you're busy drawing, and I'll show you what I can see in a moment, is I can actually very easily push what's on my screen to all of your screens. So I'm not going to do that at the moment. I can push what I've got to appear on all my students' screens. I can make it go onto your current screen, or what I could even do is push it as a background to your current screen. So for example, maybe I wanted to just keep that instruction so that it was a background on your current screen, and that's what it would appear. So it really is cool because I can stick that content and I can send it to you. But what's really good is that each of you is working in your own space. And this is where the pedagogy of creation is so powerful, because what is creating? Creating is about having to put something down. And I often call this the sort of blank page of fear. It's when you're faced with that blank page and there's nothing on it. That's why creation is such high up on the pedagogies, because there's nothing there. It's one thing to correct something. It's another thing to have a conversation around something, but there's nothing there. And I've got to start typing, or I've got to start drawing. And that's why creating is so powerful. And why I like this particular tool is each of you is sitting with a blank page. You can't see anything. You can't see what anyone else is doing. And so I can have a look at what all of you are doing. So here we go. Wow, some unbelievable, really good things. And at the moment, you possibly are seeing this on Zoom, but I can bring it up so that everyone can see it. I can, in fact, even take this and send it to all of you as students. I can kick the student. I can copy it to my teacher whiteboard, for example. I can do a whole lot of range of things. But what's cool is I can see what each of you has drawn for tomorrow. So very clever. That's why I liked it. Draw tomorrow. Yeah, some of you gone literally, this is tomorrow, and there's an arrow. Courtney's gone that tomorrow is there is sun in tomorrow. Helinka has gone and drawn very artistic. It's with trees and suns. Ingrid, excellent. That's sort of like how I would draw. It's abstract and it's beautiful. John, oh yeah, that was me earlier. Sorry that John's not there. I was just playing around. Leo's got a very nice, happy sun with someone sleeping. Shadow is definitely in the shadows at the moment. Speedy's drawn some flowers. Tracy, I like that. Tracy, little finger going, thinking. Tatum's got tomorrow out swimming. And Tracy, you're very clever. Tracy, tomorrow is Thursday. And I like that. Hope and rest. Oh, very good. But just look at the creativity there. And I know this is just a very simple activity, but what's happened to all of you? All of you have had to, in a moment, immediately create. And I know this, in a sense, is not a dramatic example, but what I've showed you is there are many, many things that can be done, even on a space like a whiteboard, on the fly. And using a tool like this, what I've enabled you to do, I've enabled you to start thinking. I've enabled you to become creative. And I can obviously look at what everyone's doing and make comments on anyone and then say something to you and come back to you on the whiteboard. So it doesn't even have to be run through a Zoom session. It could be run in any way that I want. So well done. Those are looking really good. Again, free tool. Absolutely. It's a great tool. Not the tool that's important. It's how we're using that's important. So lovely, great example of creating. So that is a very simple example of the pedagogy of creation and activating your experience. And then finally, we get to our last pedagogy. As I try and pull this all together, the pedagogy of chaos. And this is the crazy one. This is the undefined one. This is the zone of where people often come to me and say, well, what do you mean by this one? This is the one I find hardest to implement. Yet it's the one that's the most important, because it's about shifting our teaching and learning from a controlled and ordered sequence, and that will always be there, but introducing chaos for a specific reason. And I love this quote. Well, not this quote. Maybe you can just read that first, because this is what chaos is. I'm not going to read that to you. See if you can read what that says. The ability to make sense of noise and see patterns. Okay, and it's amazing how the human brain looked at that. That's actually a mess, but you can you can see something there. And that's what chaos is about. Chaos is about giving our students a bit of pressure, a bit of noise, a bit of chaos in order to force them to think, to focus, and to reorganize, because that's the world we're living in. If you make life really easy for people, just take, for example, if you want to get nice big muscles. If you said to someone came to say, how do I get big muscles? You wouldn't say, well, just sit on your sofa and enjoy yourself and relax and don't strain. That's not going to get the big muscles. It's in the strain that the muscles grow. But not just any strain. You could say, well, go out and carry rocks around my garden. Yeah, that might develop muscles. What's probably going to develop their muscles the quickest is they went to gym and followed a routine. That is specifically designed strain. And that's what chaos in teaching is about. It is about putting in a strain, a pressure with the intention of developing thinking. And that's why I love this quote from William Dole. The teacher must intentionally cause enough chaos to motivate the student to reorganize. I've got an up and down thumb there. Up if you've done it before, down if you've never tried this. Have you intentionally ever, in any teaching environment that or teaching you've been involved in, actually try to create chaos to force focus? Now, that might have been by giving them a quiz that had too many questions for them to get through, by overloading them with content, by giving them more choices. You know, often we'll say, complete this assignment in so many words using Microsoft Word in Arial font 10. Or complete this assignment, you decide what you're going to use to do it in. It must be in any of these options. And the more choices you give, the more decisions have to be made, the more thinking is engaged. And that's what Dole is talking about here. It's about intentionally causing chaos to force reorganizing. Now, there are two elements to chaos. And the two sides of chaos are pressure and perception. And they work together. That's how diamonds are formed, essentially. How's a diamond formed? The diamond is carbon that's under pressure. And then you get this beautiful, clear gem. It is crystal, because of the pressure. And so we can intentionally cause pressure. And there's multiple ways in which I could do it here. And I was thinking about doing it using Mentimeter, which I could have done. I want to show you something different. So this is going to be horrible and ugly, but it's only going to be quick. It's going to be painless. It's, you know, like when you go to the dentist and they pull your tooth in a minute. Essentially, that's what it's going to be like. So what I want you to do, I want you to go across to a tool that we developed called Act Quick. And you can get to that tool by going to that link at the bottom there, bit.do, all in lowercase, /Act Quick. Okay, so when you get to the page, just pause. You'll see a page that looks just like this when you get there. So bit.do /Act Quick. Okay. So that's the link. And when you've typed in that, you will end up at a page that looks like this. So don't do anything once you're here. Just going to give you a few seconds to go there. bit.do /Act Quick. That's just a shortcut to get you to the page. Right. When you are there, you will end up on this page that looks like this. Right. So that's actually the URL at the top. So if you type the short version, it'll get you here. Right. Now, I want you to try something. And at the moment, I'm not even going to see what you've typed, but I will show you how we can see what you've typed. This can be fun both online, or this can be fun done in a classroom in a blended learning environment. What I want you to do is you go over here, and I want you to simply put the timer up to 2 minutes. Don't do more than that, because that would be cruel, and I'm not one who wants to be cruel. No, not all the time. So I need you to put that up to 2 minutes. So it's got a 2 there. And when it's got a 2, I want you to hit a submit, and it will bring you here. Right, so listen carefully. Don't start typing until you get your instruction. The instruction is, I want you to, in just 2 minutes, write down what you've learned in our session in the last hour. But wait, if you've never experienced this, I want to show you something. Okay, you'll have 2 minutes only. But the moment you start typing, I learned that, don't start yet, it is, if you wait too long, it'll start to fade, and you will lose everything if you wait too long. Okay, you'll see it going across the top is a timer, and on the right-hand side, you will see how many seconds are left. Okay. You have to wait until it reaches the very end. Only then can you stop typing, because if you pause for too long, what will happen is that, and you have to start again. Okay, got it. So very simple. You set the timer to 2 minutes. I want you to start typing. You got 2 minutes only. What have you learned in our session today? Go. May it begin. I'm giving you 2 minutes, and then we'll have feedback time. You have 2 minutes. Start typing. I can hear screams coming through from some of you. Oh, it's pain. I can feel the pain. Some of you delayed too long and you lost everything. Don't be put off. Don't listen to my voice. Carry on, carry on. Ignore me. Ignore the screen. You have reached the end. What I would like you to do, just if you have managed of those and you haven't lost everything. So if you have managed to get to the very end and everything is not all lost, what I would like you to do is copy what you have typed, and it doesn't matter if there's spelling errors, and it doesn't matter if it hasn't got full stops, because that's not important, and you can paste it in the chat. So if you did manage to type something, you will now be able to, at the end of it, actually copy it. You can save it in all sorts of other things, but it really depends what device you're on, but you don't have to do that. You can just highlight it and copy it and paste it into the chat. Wow, Tracy, you managed to get an entire thing written so articulate, and Coleman. Right, so we're seeing some of the people's chats coming through here, and I'll quickly just look at some of them and read them, or you can all look at them later. We started with the 4 Education, Technical Revolution, the pen, printing press, the computer, and the internet, and then we looked at the digital zone, boring and passive. We want the connected zone, the ACT model, chaos, curation, connection, conversation, curation. Curating content allows me to think, order, focus, etc. The 5 critical skills using Menti. Then conversation was cool. We joined, let us chat. Right, fantastic. Coleman said, we've gone into the 4th revolution, and we need to introduce EdTech. We have not bridged the gap between digital learning and teaching, and connected learning and teaching. The problem teachers experience with the sudden need to go into digital or online teaching is that they battled to engage with the learners or get feedback. They often felt they were talking into the abyss. The tools that you have shared with us today will make it easier for educators to know if they are making any progress with the subject or section or content, which will keep learners involved and keep their attention. Yo, you guys can write a lot in 2 minutes. Well done. Okay. Craig, I like that name. Craig Wilkinson says, E-Education Ireland is documented Act Online. There are 4 EdTech revolutions throughout history. We can abbreviate it to 4 EdTech revolution. Number 1, the pen, the printing press, the computer, and the internet. Then we played some games on Mentimeter and TLK and a whiteboard. Tracy, I've had screaming children, can't think, sorry. But that's exactly it. Lovely, Tracy. That's the point. And that's why chaos activities are actually often really powerful, because they force thinking. They force our students to distill their thinking. And so when the kids stop screaming and you sit down and say, I got to do this now for 2 minutes, and it forces us to focus. And there's many elements around chaos. It's around using tools like mind maps. It's like using infographics, which are so powerful to help us articulate our thinking. So there are a whole range of tools that we can use in terms of this pedagogy. So great and lovely to see what you managed to share and come up with there so quickly. The bottom line is, as I just conclude now, is it's all about perspective. You know, we're in a new world. We're on this e-education island. And I wrote this, this is just a portion of a poem that I wrote a while ago. You can see the full thing on our blog at the bottom there. Is the right way technology with teaching? Because I'm losing my students. Don't tell me my approaches work. Teaching with technology is impossible. I see nothing these new tools bring. And that's a common perspective of a lot of people who come to technology or use it for teaching for the first time. But if we change our perspective, if we don't make it technology, then pedagogy, if we make it pedagogy, then technology, everything changes. If we reverse it. So let's reread this. But now we start at the bottom here. Bring these new tools. I see nothing is impossible teaching with technology. My approaches work. Don't tell me I'm losing my students, because teaching with technology is the right way. And so all of a sudden, a change of perspective, and in this case, just a poem reading from the bottom up compared to reading from the top down, is a totally different thing. And that's exactly what this is about. It's not about us having to change our tools dramatically. It's not about us having to rebuild our classrooms and make all sorts of smart and fancy things in our classrooms. And I was just at a digital EdTech conference last week that I was speaking at, and I heard one of the speakers, I can't remember who it was, talking about universities specifically and how they've spent hundreds of millions in the last 5 years on infrastructure. And you think, wow, but why haven't we developed the infrastructure and invested in the infrastructure of the mind and building those changes of perspective? And that's really what is required, not massive spends on infrastructure. Right, so welcome to the active connected zone, because what we've now just been doing for a little bit in this last part is we've actually been connecting. We've been using the same Zoom tools, but starting to add a layer of connection to them. And it changes how we experience learning and the effectiveness. And if you read anything on active learning, you will see that it is without doubt the most effective way to teach and learn. And that's the side of the island that we want to live on. We want to live on the active connected zone. So to finish off, we've got 2 more questions to see who really has been listening. So here we have question 4 of 5. Full focus. Are you ready? Remember, the faster you answer, the more points you get. Question 4 of 5. Get those fingers ready. The piece we miss when educating with technology is which of these? Is it technology, pedagogy, baking powder, immunology? And you've got just 3 seconds left. 2, 1, and time is up. Yes, you've got it. Yes, absolutely. And again, it's not rocket science, but the problem is having the right and appropriate pedagogies. And the problem is making the pedagogies visible. And the solution is about bringing that and changing a perspective and making that front of mind for our educators. And so finally, our very last question. I warn you, it's a sneaky one. And it's going to be whoever answers it the fastest is going to benefit the most. But then you know that it happens, you answer fast and you get it wrong. So you got to be, I just suggest just go quick. Because you haven't seen where the leaderboard is at the moment. I purposely didn't show you. We're only going to see after this question. So here we go. The final question. The key connected era education is, the key element of the connected era in education is, that's what I should have said, is what? What is the key to connected era education? And time is up. The key to connected era education is, it's all of those. It is having the right pedagogies. It is active learning. It is paradigm shift. It is engagement. These are all key elements of being able to teach in the connected era. And when we bring these things together, we change hugely how teaching and learning takes place. And so finally, the leaderboard, drum roll, barefoot contest are doing quite well there, but shadow doing even better there. Is there going to be a change at the top of the leaderboard? And barefoot contest, oh, is the winner. Well done, barefoot contest, whoever you may be. You are followed close behind by shadow, always in the shadows. Well done. I can hear the screams and the delight from all over here. Well done. So that was merely to keep you engaged. So just to conclude, everyone, thank you. What I wanted to show you is that there is a journey, and it is a journey because arriving on e-Education Island requires a mindset change. It requires us to see things in a slightly different way. And what we've put together in our in ACT Education is a series of different things that try and help you. The one is a whole range of courses. We have what we actually call now micro degree, that is essentially a whole lot of little courses that teachers can do that bring them through the journey, that bring them from this digital zone through to the connected zone as they work through each of these courses and experience pedagogies, because that's where the learning happens, because these aren't just courses. I firmly believe that you must eat your own dog food, so to speak. I want you to do the course, and while you're doing the course, you're experiencing the pedagogy. That's what I was trying to do today, that you would experience conversation, you would experience correction. And so that is a very key element of what we are bringing and helping schools with at the moment. And it's never been more important than it is now, these courses and the training that you can learn and experience. But it's more than that. We found that how do you then get teachers to operationalize their new way of teaching? And we do that by encouraging the teachers to build lesson plans that are pedagogically based. And so all these courses help teachers develop those lesson plans. But not only do they get to develop lesson plans using the tools and the pedagogies, there is this growing range of lesson plans that other educators have developed around a range of content topics that you can access. And not only do you get to access their lesson plans, many of the lesson plans also have links where they've built a Mentimeter, or they have built a TLKIO, or they've built something digitally that you can then use or modify for your own use. And so that in itself is a huge time saver and a way of activating our thinking. But again, even that needs more, because what's happening in our modern day and age is that new tools are coming on board all the time, and teachers are overwhelmed and say, well, how do I do this? And so we've developed what's called the ACT Toolbox, where you can literally go into this toolbox, search for something. Oh, what tools do you have on a particular topic? What do you have that maybe covers teaching with using Zoom, for example? And it will give you lessons specifically on that. As you can see now, how to do screen recording, a hack using Zoom, how to compress videos, how to set up virtual backgrounds using Zoom. And there are videos within these that explain all of these things. And so this toolbox is constantly growing. And not even that, teachers can even contribute to the toolbox, because that's the only way we're going to do this. We need to grow together and build these great teaching examples around the content, but as long as it has a pedagogic base. And then the part I'm really most excited about is this can't be done alone. It can't just be done by me. It can't be done by just your schools. We need a team. And I've managed to pull together, and this team is just growing, what I consider to be the dream team. These are the top educationalists in technology in South Africa, and in fact, beyond South Africa. Every single person here is not only either about to complete or has a PhD in education and technology, but is a leader in that field. And these are the people that are also coming in to help support schools, because we've realized it's a massive project and schools need not only training, but they need guidance on a range of things. And so we've now putting together a team of the best minds in education to help make this journey to the other side of the island. And I want what we're doing now in South Africa to be a showcase for the world. And that's why we've built this team. And as I said, this team is growing almost weekly. New people who are the leaders in their fields in education technology. So no longer is it necessary for you as a principal, as an HOD, to be led by a pure tech person, which is great, and we need the tech person, or by some consultant from a company who has got a great product they want to sell you. We need to be led by people who understand education, and not only understand education technology, and have been involved in it for many years. And so that team, I'm really excited about, what I call the dream team. And so bottom line is, it's changed. It's changed forever. We may be heading back to school, and even if we do, and we pray that all things go well, it's still changed, and we've got to change our approaches, because teaching and learning, and I'm sure you've all seen the adverts that all these people are leaping online and doing online schooling. Even us as traditional schools and higher education institutes have to respond to that. Our economic models have to change. Our engagement models have to change. Everything has to change, and we can no longer just sit and think it's going to be the same. And so the future is already here, and you drew the future. Well, the future is here. So I really am happy to help all of you, and we will reach out to you again for as little or as much as you would like our help. As I said, we've got this ACT Education. It has a range of training courses that we really believe the approach has to be whole school. Teaching one or two teachers isn't enough, because we're all now on the island. We have to have a paradigm shift. And so we really happy to help you with making that shift. There's just a link at the bottom of the screen if you jot it down, bit.do/e-ed, where there's a very short little video, which is basically what I've covered here. It's just a little 20-minute video, but it's an interactive video, just to, again, show you how you can teach in an interactive way, even if you're using a YouTube video. And that video talks about these things and talks a bit about the team and some of the things that we're offering. So that's all that I wanted to say. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity. If anyone has any questions, you can either put them in the chat or you can put them in the Q&A. There are two places that you can do that. Or at the end of the day and you're tired and you need to rest, that's fine as well. We will be in touch, and we really hope to be able to help you, because I believe together that we can achieve really amazing things. We just got to do the right things. We've got the basics. We've got great teachers. We've got great leaders. We've got great tools. We just got to bring them together. And if we bring them together and we head the right direction, we're going to change. And hopefully you've experienced a little bit of what active and connected teaching can be about. So from my side, thank you, everyone. As I said, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in. If you are need to head out, you please feel free to do that. But it's been absolutely wonderful sharing this time with you. I really get excited and passionate about these things, and hopefully you've noticed that in what I've been saying, because I believe we have some really exciting possibilities. And I've worked with all of the people from the various schools who are here. It's been so exciting to see some of you come online and see people, Tracy and Coleman, Craig and others who are here, and see you, well, sort of virtually see you for a moment. So really nice, and I hope all's going well with what you're doing. And I do hope to help you as we head forward into this new unknown, because next year is nearly upon us and we need to get things right and be prepared. We can't be caught again like this. We need to be really prepared for where things are going to go in the future. So thank you once again, everyone. And I hope you have a lovely evening. As I said, jot down that little link if you want to. There's a form there if you want to fill it in. But we will also connect with you later on in the week, and we can chat more about how we can do things. Yes, thanks, Craig. It needs to be fun. And I believe that education can be fun, should be fun. And that's what it's about. It's about fun in the activity. So I wish you all a beautiful and blessed evening. And I hope to catch you all on the other side. So God bless, and thank you everyone for giving up some time to be here and part of the webinar. And we'll see you soon.